There are scary stories, and then there's Junji Ito, a name that gives horror fans the willies. My man here was the best horror manga writer in Japan, and he never skimped on the scares. He knew how to dig into your thoughts and get under your skin until you felt all kinds of uneasy. And it wasn't merely about terrifying monsters or sudden frights, but he straight up delivered some unsettling, mind-bending horror. He could transform even the most mundane objects, a chair, a song, or even a simple spiral, into terrifying, unstoppable nightmares that felt like they had you in a chokehold. If you ask someone passionate about his work, they'll tell you, nobody does it better. So, hold on tight as we're about to explore every adaptation of Junji Ito's warped universe. Before we get into our explanation, we do have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Tomie, 1998. Junji Ito, the master of horror manga, had a strange phobia as a child. The bathroom. Why not? It stood at the very end of a long, dark underground tunnel with water crickets. Somehow, this odd childhood fear developed into a talent for writing the most horrifying tales that we enjoy today. He would spend his days working as a dental technician and his nights drawing. Tomie, a horror legend, the girl who can never be killed, was born out of one of those late-night pieces that was submitted to a magazine called Monthly Halloween. The 1998 version told the story of a 20-year-old Tsukiko who was receiving psychiatric hypnosis in the hopes of piecing her life together after a mysterious accident left her with a blank slate. Night after night, Tsukiko sees a decapitated corpse and herself covered in blood in her dreams. Dr. Hosono, her psychiatrist, and Detective Harada suspect foul play in this alleged tragedy. Turns out they couldn't have been more correct. Tanabe, Tsukiko's boyfriend, brutally murdered Kawakami Tomie, a classmate of Tsukiko's. Since then, Tanabe was poof, and Tsukiko's memory was erased. Detective Harada is left to untangle the mystery that just keeps getting stranger and stranger. Oh, and we haven't even gotten to the strange part yet. Well, it's revealed that the murder of Tomie was not an isolated incident. Harada finds that the same Tomie has been murdered before, more times than you can count, some of which date back to the 1800s. And yet, not a single body has been found to date. Harada suspects that he isn't dealing with a mere human. At the same time, Tomie makes a comeback, rises from a plastic bag head first, and quickly regenerates a body. Yes, you heard that right, and she's back doing what she does best. After killing Tsukiko's pals one by one, she's returned to ruin her life by enticing Yuichi, Tsukiko's charming new boyfriend. When Tsukiko's memory finally comes rushing back, she learns the truth about Tomie. Unstoppable, supernatural, and just getting started. And poor Tsukiko finds this out the hard way. As soon as those opening credits began to roll, I was hooked. The first thing you hear is a static buzz and a garbled voice against a pitch-black screen with some simple white titles. All of a sudden, you find yourself on a busy city street where a young dude is rummaging through a white paper bag. Without giving away too much, what begins as something disturbing rapidly transforms into this breathtaking moment of tranquility. You never know what's going to happen next in this film, and it keeps you guessing. The movie takes its sweet time, but that's the beauty of it. It nails that eerie vibe and the characters' expressions, which range from agony to dread to rage to obsession. Every frame carries the weight of Ito's impact. The atmosphere is so thick with tension that you could cut it with a knife. In Tomie, you will neither find spirits nor squeaky floors. It's not like other ghost stories, so forget the usual spooks and squeaks. Instead, it's understated, centered on the uneasy feeling you get when you sense something is wrong but can't exactly put your finger on it. It feels almost suffocating in its subtle, unsettling way. So, if you're after thrills or a splatterfest, Tomie isn't for you. But if you're into a suspenseful slow burn that keeps you on the edge of your seat, may we recommend this wonderful movie. Tomie Replay 2000. In my opinion, you can certainly add this sequel to the list of Terminator 2, Aliens, and Spider-Man 2. You know the list I mean, the list of sequels that totally crushed it and how. Don't get me wrong, the first Tomie was good, we don't dispute that, but it seemed to be lacking that extra zing if you know what I mean. Tomie Replay fills that void and even elevates it to new heights. It's one of those rare sequels that improves everything from the original and stands tall on its own 2 feet. Right out of the gate, let me tell you, it's fast-paced. Another major plus is that the plot remains faithful to the manga, which is a first. The sequel, which stands completely independent from the first film, follows Yumi on her quest to find her father, a hospital director who vanished under mysterious circumstances. He went missing after performing a peculiar but horrific operation that revealed the living head of a severed woman inside a girl's abdomen. That doesn't sound good. After they take the head out and place it in a tank, Yumi begins to discover sinister mysteries about the hospital. It's obvious that something is wrong, and it's all connected to Tomie, a dark demonic entity that can regenerate but also drive men mad with their obsessions with her. Tomie Replay really amps up all the good things from the original film. Body horror is a prominent feature of Junji Ito's work, and Tomie Replay completely embraces the warped concept. The human body undergoes unthinkable transformations in Ito's stories, stretched, sliced, peeled, and puffed into shapes that are beyond recognition. This sequel ups the ante on an already strange franchise with even more disturbing visuals. I betcha you won't soon forget the graphic and uncut terror that fills this film. The horror here hits hard and real fast, loaded with unsettling moments that'll haunt your thoughts. Bits and pieces of the body? A lot. Dead bodies? You bet. And a sprinkle of downright bizarre things? Oh, most certainly. The opening scene, in which the physicians doing the cesarean section discover a woman's head rather than a baby, will stay with you forever. The outstanding utilization of lighting and sound made sure that the franchise's trademark strangeness remains present. The creepy score especially does a great job by enhancing the unsettling ambiance. One moment it's all sweet bird songs, and the next you're startled by the sound of shattered glass or the chopping of a hacksaw. The plot's development is noteworthy. It's complex and full of unexpected turns, but it all makes sense somehow and progresses at a good speed without becoming tedious. While it may not have the jump scares and ghost scenes like The Ring or The Grudge, we're pretty sure you won't be disappointed. Uzumaki 2000. Uzumaki means spiral in Japanese. It's a tale about a tiny island town community that's tortured by a strange and horrifying curse as it unnaturally takes hold of the town and leads them to obsession and paranoia. I know this sounds incredibly stupid, but it's an eerie tale about people caught up in the bizarre chaos of a mysterious force that's distorting everything and everyone in its path. Strange happenings begin in Kiri and her boyfriend Shuichi's hometown of Kurozucho and turn the once quaint town upside down. It all begins with Shuichi's dad, Toshio's single-minded obsession with the spiral shape, so much so that he spends hours filming the intricate patterns of a snail's shell. As he spirals into lunacy due to his passion, Kiri and Shuichi see that the others in the town are also becoming obsessed with the wretched shape. Driven by this creepy obsession, individuals begin to end their own lives. A young child plummets down a spiral staircase with a grin on his face. Students begin to metamorphose into enormous human snails. Girls in the town get a makeover with spiral curls in their hair. Even Kiri's dad, the potter, gets totally obsessed with crafting a never-ending supply of spiral-shaped ceramics. Everything goes utterly, completely, disastrously wrong and out of control. Shuichi's dad takes his spiral obsession to another level when they run out of spiral fish cake and he loses it and starts collecting everything spiral-shaped. His obsession reaches a sad but terrifying zenith when he spins himself to death in a washing machine. It's just a typical case of rinse and repeat gone wrong, right? And honestly, from here, it's all downhill. Just as a devastating typhoon is about to hit the town, a local journalist believes he's found a clue, but it's already too late. As the number of deaths and warp transformations increases, Kurozucho seems like it's about to collapse. Uzumaki takes a humble spiral and turns it into an instrument of unadulterated, fantastical terror. Honestly, Uzumaki is essentially a chaotic series of strange happenings with no clear backstory or direction. Shuichi won't stop yapping about leaving the town, and given the current state of affairs, they should have left when they had the time. But just like the rest of us, they procrastinate, and we all know how that ends for them. Well, I know, at least. However, the film doesn't stray too far from Junji Ito's manga in a few places and faithfully recreates some moments and graphics from it. Spirals are everywhere. No kidding. Up in the sky, fluffy clouds, gritty dirt, and all those mundane things around us. But once these spirals take hold of a person, things go wrong pretty quickly. We see people changing into snails randomly. But hey, it has Junji Ito's name on it, so it's gonna have some creepy happenings and some seriously squirm-inducing body horror. It's more spooky than terrifying, and unlike most horror films, it doesn't use suspense or jump scares too often. Instead, Uzumaki saunters along and allows the strangeness to gradually work its way under your skin. One scene that really grabs your attention is when a woman in a hospital room is sound asleep as a gigantic centipede-like creature with 1,000 legs slowly creeps into the room. It climbs the bedpost, glides over the sheets, passes over her pillow, and finally reaches her ear. That scene had me squirming and curling my toes. Let's not forget the scene when Kiri discovers Shuichi's dad in the washing machine. It's expertly crafted because the horror is conveyed through the character's reactions long before you even see the horrible sight. Also, don't bother trying to make sense of the spirals because there's no neat answer to it. Also, the Japanese comic series from which the film was adapted was still in progress when the movie came out, hence the film's sudden and cryptic ending. But in all honesty, who cares? The visuals are the real scene stealers. Bodies contorting into tight knots, hair twisting into spirals, eyes spinning like whirlpools, and folks gradually transforming into snails. When we're expecting the usual monsters, aliens, or zombie fare, I found the horror shapes a breath of fresh air. The cinematography really pops too, with its cold green tint that keeps up with the eerie tone. Uzumaki shows that there are a million ways to scare the socks off you, and thank goodness for that. Tomie, Rebirth, 2001. Jumping right out of Junji Ito's manga, Tomie Rebirth begins with the renowned painter Hideo Kamada at work on his most recent portrait. The subject is the enigmatic Tomie Kawakami. However, she rejects and destroys the picture, as is typical of Tomie. Driven mad with rage, Hideo stabs her with his palette knife. After that, he seeks the help of his friends Shunichi Hosoda and Takumi Aoyama to lend a hand in disposing of the body. But since we're talking about Tomie here, she won't be playing dead for long. Things take a murky turn when she reappears that same night while the group is out partying. Ever since that night, Tomie begins to appear at Takumi and Shunichi's every outing, and whenever she shows up, strange things happen. Meanwhile, Hitomi, Takumi's girlfriend, begins to exhibit some telltale signs of Tomie's control, and the relationship starts to crumble. There's a lot of gore and death in the picture. Well, Tomie dies multiple times, but it's more realistic than the others. The horrifying moments are all the more shocking since the setting is so realistic with its typical streets, businesses, and houses. One scene that really hits home was when a girl is all by herself in her room staring at her reflection. Out of nowhere, the closet behind her slowly opens and a ghostly pale girl's face emerges from it, enough to raise the hairs on the back of your neck. But the moment the girl looks back, she's gone, just like that. The film sustains an eerie atmosphere from beginning to end. So far, Sakai Miki has been the most impressive actress to play Tomie. She manages to walk the fine line and juggles human feelings and monstrous scheming down to the T. Her giggle is adorably eerie, unsettling in its own right. Let me just say it, there has never been a Tomie like this one. This Tomie had the power to resurrect herself via paintings, could possess people with just her lipstick, and even murder with her own hair. She doesn't even flinch in the movie. Dark and foreboding cinematography and a droning, unsettling score elevate the entire ordeal. The suspense is further intensified by the camera's gradual, creeping approach to the characters. The special effects brilliantly reveal Tomie's true self, particularly during those moments of destruction and in scenes where her body is just casually reassembling itself. Sure, some gory bits might make you squirm, but that's not all Tomie Rebirth has to offer. The plot revolves around how Tomie, in all her fabulous forms, manipulates and twists the lives of those around her to stay one step ahead. Less emphasis on graphic violence and more on the creepy control she has over others. Kakashi, 2001. Meaning scarecrow in Japanese, the story of Kakashi revolves around a quirky town with some seriously creepy scarecrows. A young woman named Kaoru was on a quest to track down her missing brother, Tsuyoshi. While searching his residence, she comes upon a letter from his allegedly deceased girlfriend in which she requests that he meet her in a secluded mountain town named Kozukata. Of course, Kaoru makes her way there, and the instant she sets foot in the village, it's obvious something is totally off. The villagers aren't very happy to see a stranger at their annual Scarecrow Festival. Yep, that's a real thing. There's an uneasy air about the entire place, and the locals obviously don't want Kaoru around. You could just sense that Kaoru was the odd one out. Stranger and stranger things happen as Kaoru investigates her brother's disappearance. Ghostly figures appear, there are some clever twists, and the scarecrows follow her about like hawks. The longer she stays there, the more she's sure that something uncanny is happening, seemingly connected with the creepy scarecrows that strangely outnumber the villagers. Eventually, she hunts down Tsuyoshi's girlfriend, Izumi, who's alive but in an unusual way. All along, you would keep hoping that Kaoru would just turn her back and leave this strange community as soon as she finds her brother. But as she digs deeper into the town's shadowy secrets and its scarecrow-studded streets, it's clear that she's overstayed her welcome. But getting out now may no longer be a viable choice. While Kakashi avoids Junji Ito's signature style of gore, it doesn't compromise on the creepiness of its creepy environment, disturbing characters, and slow-building dread that gets under your skin in the best way possible. It's a sneaky little fright, but oh so effective. It takes a lesser-known story by Junji Ito and transforms it into a terrifying film by combining elements of the classic monster tale with just the right dash of cult creepiness. It builds its eerie atmosphere and keeps it real, relying on melodrama rather than straightforward body horror. It has a slow burn tension and very little visual shock, with characters going through distressing changes that are more disturbing than any jump scare. The gorgeous visuals bring the isolated village and the countryside to life and create an understated but genuinely eerie mood. There is a noticeable sense of mystery, melancholy, and seclusion. What really sends shivers down the spine is that the Scarecrow Festival is inspired by a real-life event that actually happens every fall in the town of Yamagata. This real-world link only makes it all plausible and adds to the spooky elements. Although it's not as fast-paced or as scary as Ito's other adaptations, the film succeeds in a more understated way. It leaves you with a lingering sense of unease. Tomie, Forbidden Fruit, 2002. This movie gives 2 Tomies instead of just one without breaking the bank. But don't confuse it with Tomie vs. Tomie, in which she competes against her own reflection. In Tomie Forbidden Fruit, we're introduced to 2 different Tomies, one a regular girl and the other the immortal villain we can't help but love to hate. This installment brings us to Tomie Hashimoto, a timid schoolgirl and a writer of homoerotic fiction who's bullied by her classmates. She lived with her father, Kazuhiko, a quiet, broken man who was still grieving the loss of his wife from a decade ago. Interestingly, Tomie H was named after Kazuhiko's first crush, Tomie Kawakami. Yes, the same old Tomie who just refuses to die. Turns out that 25 years ago, Kazuhiko's old friend killed Tomie Kawakami, which left him with a broken heart. Things quickly turn bizarre when the long-dead Tomie Kawakami returns to their lives and quickly forms a friendship with Tomie H. However, Tomie K's intentions were far from amicable. She hated her namesake, as Tomie H was a reminder that Kazu had married another woman and given birth to a daughter that he had built a life for after her life was snatched away from her. Starting with the shrine to his late wife, Tomie K intended to regain Kazu and erase the years he endured without her. Easy peasy. However, the real problem was Kazu's daughter, Tomie H. Tomie K manipulates Kazuhiko into killing his own child to win back the heart of the guy who once loved her. You'd imagine any dad would put his foot down against such a wild request, but we're talking about Tomie here. And when she's around, the awful power of obsession reigns supreme, and all that good old morality just takes a hike. Obsession, revenge, and love, this chapter of Tomie is both thrilling and terrifying. It's not all jump scares and nightmares, but a more somber drama with creepy undertones. Even though it isn't the scariest in the series, it sure does succeed in creating the darkest and most suffocating environment that we've encountered thus far. Among the most terrifying scenes is the one in which Tomie is fed while she's just an ugly infant, or her severed head being carried in a baby carriage. Those are the kind of images you just can't shake off. In addition, the plot of this installment is quite strong compared to the others in the series. The film really revolves around the relationship dynamics, especially the one between Kazuhiko and his daughter. A delicate, emotional backdrop is created by the rocky father-daughter relationship, which is rare in a Tomie movie, and Tomie K's manipulative presence, which drives the plot. Before Tomie showed up, Kazuhiko and his daughter were barely hanging on by a thread. Once Tomie gets involved, you start to wonder if she's actually helping or if she's simply making things worse. The dynamic between the 2 Tomies is a real treat to watch. Good horror films are all about that unsettling vibe, and Tomie Forbidden Fruit succeeds, at least in the first half. Unfortunately, it loses focus halfway through despite a solid setup and a spooky atmosphere. That said, it pulls itself together by the end and serves up a pretty solid finish. All in all, rather than focusing on physical terror, this horror film explores the effects of an emotional mind game and the ripple effect on Tomie and those close to her. Tomie, beginning 2005. Just when you began to think that dating girls named Tomie was risk-free, well, not anytime soon. Matsubara Reiko, a fresh high school grad whose class had the terrible luck of accepting Tomie Kawakami, is the narrator of this story. School is in utter disarray as Reiko and her classmate Yamamoto bump into each other in their old homeroom. There have been rumors that their teacher is in a mental institution, and several students have tragically taken their own lives or met horrific ends. Yamamoto seems to have lost an eye to it. As they sit in the wrecked classroom, they remember how Tomie's entrance turned their lives upside down. Fans of Tomie will definitely recognize the plot. Male students are captivated by Tomie's web of charm and quickly start competing for her attention. As for the gals, they're green with jealousy. Tomie's looks and charms have their boyfriends turning into puddles of goo, sparking jealousy and fury all around the school hall. But soon, this obsession turns into something dark and sinister. Well, everyone knows how this is gonna end. Those caught in Tomie's web just give up. Anger boils over and they brutally kill her in a fit of rage. But we all know how this story wraps up. Tomie just can't take a hint, can she? Dead? Please. Every time she returns, she plunges her unsuspecting victims further into the depths of insanity. In one bizarre but entertaining scene, her severed ear grows back, complete with tentacles, and slithers out into the underbrush. It's one of those delightfully weird moments that leaves you both puzzled and amused. As an unstoppable force, the insanity Tomie spreads is a major component of her iconic status in horror. Tomie Revenge 2005. Honestly, at this point, I'm completely out of snappy openings for Tomie films. Anyways, despite making an unexpectedly sincere and odd call for the end of all men, Tomie manages to play the role of the naive and endearing protagonist in this one. It all starts when Dr. Kazue Suma, driving alone down a lonely mountain road, crashes with a naked woman running across the pavement. She gives the doctor a disturbing expression before bolting into the woods. The concerned doctor's search for the injured girl leads her to an abandoned hut where she finds a different unconscious girl. The girl is escorted back to the doctor's remote hospital. A year later, this same girl, now known as Yukiko, was still oblivious to her true identity. The ball of sunshine, she lights up the hospital with joy for both staff and patients. That is, until two investigators arrive and begin interrogating. They were curious about the Tomie files, which described numerous instances where a young woman is murdered in a fit of rage and jealousy. Yes, the same woman, but somehow reappears. They believed that Tomie's blood could clone her and could transform her victims into mindless copies of herself. For some reason, the detectives are convinced that Yukiko, who was found in the woods, might have some information regarding Tomie's location or the current situation. But Dr. Kazue isn't exactly eager to lend a hand. By the way, did I mention that the doctor discovered a videotape at the cabin? A bunch of young men are rambling about Tomie, with one of them going off on camera, shouting about how she's multiplying to infinity in the woods. I mean, that doesn't really sound like something the doctor should have shared with the detectives, right? Sure, infinity might just be two Tomies, but let's be real, one Tomie is enough to wreak havoc. Two of them, let's just say it's not going to end well for anybody who crosses their paths. So, somewhere, Tomie, or her clones, are making boys crazy, as per usual, but the major question is, who's gonna fight this? Or them? Also, who is Yukiko really? Just a ball of sunshine with no memory of her life? Underneath that sunny facade, is there something sinister? Who can say? Rather than embracing the series' signature eerie tone and atmosphere, this Tomie edition settles for a dull and unremarkable plot that barely raises an eyebrow. Absolutely, there are a few random gore scenes sprinkled throughout. They happen so out of nowhere that you could really find yourself laughing along with the characters. The plot is superficial and doesn't really make sense, while the relationship between the characters is so tenuous that they hardly exist. This film is one of the weaker Tomie representations in the entire series. There are some solid scenes, and I'll hand it to them to try to connect all the Tomie films. However, that isn't very convincing. In my opinion, the entire picture is a disaster. Nobody stays around for very long, and Tomie doesn't have the same ferocious edge as seen in the manga or the previous movies. Tomie vs. Tomie, 2007. Two girls, given an injection of the original Tomie's blood, become full-fledged Tomies in this story. However, the process has a few hiccups. They degraded over time since the technique was defective. Now, to sustain themselves, they've been searching for pure Tomie blood. A few years later, we see a young man who's just lost his fiancée. He lands a job in a factory but is unaware that one of the imperfect Tomies has her eyes on him. But since he was still hung up on his late girlfriend, he showed no interest. She finds this incredibly enticing and obviously develops an unhealthy obsession with. Soon enough, he finds himself in the middle of a vicious match between the two Tomies, where neither is willing to step back and they're both willing to die in the process? Alright, so in classic Tomie style, you cannot predict whether Tomie will end up on fire and devouring someone from the inside out before the movie ends. Spoiler, you know it, those two things do in fact happen. After all, it's Japanese horror, bizarre is just part of the package. This movie is basically a Japanese version of Amityville. It's strange, it's scary, and you can't help but stare. Tomie Unlimited 2011. High school photography club member Tsukiko has always felt second best to Tomie, her older sister. Among the guys, particularly Toshio, whom Tsukiko secretly has a crush on, Tomie is the center of attention due to her breathtaking beauty, and this bothers Tsukiko. One day, however, while Tomie is getting her pictures clicked, a steel rod impales her through the shoulder and stomach and kills her. But the horrific part of this freak accident was that Tsukiko accidentally filmed the accident as it unfolded on camera. After the catastrophe, Tsukiko withdraws from the photography club and suffers from constant nightmares night after night. On the anniversary of Tomie's death, exactly 1 year later, Tsukiko's bad dreams take a dark turn as Tomie unexpectedly reappears. While Tsukiko isn't buying it, her parents are ecstatic and ready to do anything for their back-from-the-dead daughter. As time passes, Tomie begins to show her true self, but only to Tsukiko. She proudly shows off the horrific scar from her freak accident, which has transformed into a tumor with a long, strange tongue. Yeah, that's right. But when Tomie decides to leave, the father stabs his daughter to death in a fit of rage to make her stay. What comes next is nothing short of bizarre and creepy. The parents calmly hack up Tomie's corpse and dispose of the parts. Wait, that's not even the strangest part. Just like every other night, the mom, taking a break from all the slicing and cutting, prepares a lunchbox for Tsukiko to bring to school the next day. In the meantime, Dad picks up a quirky little habit of munching on Tomie's hair from her very much alive severed head. Utterly confused? Same, my friend, same. Things just keep getting weirder and weirder by the minute. Tsukiko tries to go about her life and shows up at school only to meet her new classmate who looks just like her sister, Tomie. The new girl is quickly up to no good and begins seducing anyone who gets in her way. If you thought anything you heard up until now sounded weird, let me tell you, the weirdness hasn't even started yet. It so happened that somehow a fragment of the original Tomie ended up in Tsukiko's lunch. This little piece of Tomie transforms into pint-sized Tomie heads with their long tongues sticking down Tomie's friend. Abso-freaking-lutely strange. By now, you must know that there is no shortage of bizarre images in the film, such as Tomie's head poking out of a trash can, or as a matter of fact, Tomie encouraging her father to murder his wife so she can take her body, or the scene where Toshio brutally murders Tomie in a gym, but she somehow recovers enough to make love with him. Not to mention the innumerable Tomie centipedes that were created from her long black hair and her many faces placed one after the other, making up the centipede's body. Guys, you have to watch this to know what I'm talking about. Regrettably, Tsukiko is totally outmatched. As the film unfolds, it becomes obvious that Tomie can infect others and transform them into carbon copies of herself. By the end, it seems that every lady Tsukiko passes has a distinctive mole under her left eye, just like Tomie's. From beginning to end, it's pure chaos. Trust us, after you're done watching, you'll surely wonder what in the world you just watched. Because same, man, same. Despite taking pages out of Junji Ito's trademark body horror and themes of social isolation, Tomie Unlimited isn't exactly trying to frighten you. Well, is a little, but the main goal is to make you feel uneasy and squirm. The sight of Tomie's dad biting her hair is something you just can't get away from. While the film isn't spectacular, it's in no way dull. It's full of absurdities that will make you shout, "What?" every other 5 minutes. Television series Tomie, Another Face, 1999. Originally titled Tomie, Fearsome Girl, this miniseries followed Tomie, the gal who just refuses to die. Eventually becoming a 3-episode horror anthology, these individual episodes were pieced together for a full-length feature film with the title Tomie, Another Face. In each episode, a new character falls prey to Tomie's lethal clutches. All the while, a shadowy figure wearing a trench coat and an eye patch lurks in the shadows. The first episode opens in a high school where the sudden appearance of Tomie in class startles everyone, especially considering the fact that she recently died. Yeah, no biggie. Tomie, however, is Tomie, and death is merely a speed bump on the long road of her life. After her resurrection, her manipulative and nasty nature too comes back to life, and her boyfriend can only take so much until things get really dangerous. Again, this episode follows the tried and true Tomie formula. She reappears, causes mayhem, sets up a love triangle, and dies, only to reappear again. The episode's violence stands in stark contrast to the naive high school setting and almost childlike narration style, which gives a jarring yet fascinating mix. The second episode gives us a glimpse of Tomie's everlasting youth. A photographer bumps into a woman who's the spitting image of his long-lost crush. His first thought is that she is his ex-girlfriend's daughter, but he soon realizes that she's actually the same woman. While it is the slowest of the three stories, it explores Tomie's immortality. Most of the shots feature the photographer capturing Tomie's beauty, but I gotta admit, at least Tomie looks absolutely lovely in her traditional cheongsam. In the last episode, we get a better look at Tomie's sick, twisted psyche. This time, she has Yasuda, a straight-laced businessman, entwined in her web. Head over heels in love with Tomie, the guy pops the question, but a man with one eye suddenly jumps out of the bushes and attempts to assault Tomie with a giant knife. Yasuda, too stunned to react, flees the scene with Tomie. However, she scolds him for failing to defend her. The following day, she gets Yasuda a big hunting knife and insists he put it to use against her would-be attacker, or else their relationship will end. Yasuda sets out on a mission to win her over. When he finally does, he uncovers a shocking truth that the one-eyed man was actually a coroner who lost his job and family. Tomie left his morgue slab. He didn't see that one coming. With a combination of weapon fights and cheesy special effects, this last episode provides the greatest fun and brings a vibrant conclusion to the miniseries. This one has less gore and blood than its previous installments. I mean, there's not even one single instance of decapitation, but there are sure some untimely deaths to keep things interesting. As Junji Ito depicted her in his manga, Tomie is conceived exactly in the same light as the series. A selfish and evil woman, and a real malicious force with a manipulative personality out there effortlessly catching men off guard. Well, all in all, it's suspenseful. You won't feel the need to peek through your fingers in terror. Junji Ito Collection 2018. Some of Junji Ito's finest works are in his short story collections, each story concise and with effective horror. These tales tease you with just enough info to keep you in the loop and hit you with a twist that leaves you disturbed with more questions than answers. The Junji Ito Collection Anthology anime series debuted in 2018 and had stories of the most unusual and unsettling nature. Slug Girl, The Fashion Model, and The Window Next Door are among Ito's most renowned and unsettling works, and they were adapted for the series. Fans of Ito will undoubtedly notice his signature blend of the macabre and the surreal, like the tale of a girl mysteriously morphing into a slug for no good reason, or the odd story of a gem that creates holes all over someone's body. Plus, Tomie, one of Ito's most famous works, about a girl so stunning that she could drive everyone around her insane. While the stories are still there, this anime received mixed reviews from critics. One of the major concerns was getting used to Ito's one-of-a-kind artwork. His original black and white paintings are known for their contrast and meticulous details. These features are what create an unsettling atmosphere in his tales. However, the anime's color palette and art style failed to do justice to his intricate drawings, thus resulting in something that felt one-dimensional and lifeless at times. It totally failed to achieve the same level of atmospheric tension and lacked the nuance of Ito's original works, which made his work so blood-curdling to begin with. It felt like something important was missing from this series, but if you haven't dipped your toes into Ito's eerie waters yet, the Junji Ito Collection is a good place to start. For manga enthusiasts, it'll probably just come off as a watered-down version. Junji Ito Maniac, Japanese Tales of the Macabre, 2023. Personally, I've never been one to enjoy a horror anthology. Not really my cup of tea, but the series Junji Ito Maniac, Japanese Tales of the Macabre completely shifted my perspective. There's a distinctive narrative arc for each episode, and no, you don't have to worry about following a grand narrative, even though some stories are loosely related. The best part is there's no need to binge the old episodes to catch up on the story. You could just jump right back into the series and it's all good. While some episodes are better than others, none are so dreadful you'll want to miss them. Although there is some slight dent in the narrative quality, there's just so much to love about this series. The voice acting is superb, the animation is perfect for the scary mood, and the plots are truly unsettling. The animation style might not be for everyone, I admit, but believe me, the creepiness will reel you in regardless. Some episodes had my heart doing the cha-cha, but don't worry, it's not the type of show that'll haunt your dreams. No cheap thrills or bloodbaths here, just expertly created spine-chilling tales. When it comes to spinning a good yarn, Junji Ito Maniac sure knows how to deliver the chills. Marvelous verdict. When you get down to it, reading any of the Junji Ito mangas is like taking a journey through the craziest nooks of your nightmares. And boy, what an adventure it is every time. From Tomie to Uzumaki and everything in between, Ito's tales have had varied film and series adaptations. While some adaptations really hit the nail on the head and capture Ito's signature style of creepy crawly, body-shocking horror, others, let's just say, are more unique. Whether they're live action or animated, scary or oddly funny, the originality and warped brilliance of Junji Ito's work is what makes these adaptations truly remarkable. His bizarre and creepy history is what keeps fans coming back for more. He's a horror legend for a reason, after all. So, whether you're an ardent Junji Ito admirer or just starting to explore his strange worlds, there's a little something for everyone. That's all we got for you today, but if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there and have a marvelous day.